This mastering before and after is wild. Listen to this. Wild, right? Especially they were level matched and the final master, well, look how loud it meters. In the threes. Fucking wild loud. Now, I mastered it from stems and some of you might call it mixing. So at the end of this video, after I show you every move and detail I made, I want to know, do you think I cheated because I worked from stems? Now, the reason why I consider this purely mastering is because there were 9 stems and only 4 instances of processing on the individual stems to manage them. And there were no more than 2 decibels of level change to any individual stem. All the real heavy lifting was done on my stereo out master bus. So let's go through it all. Here are the stems you have for this session: FX, guitar, high synth, high perk, kick, low perk, low synth, sub, and vocals. Now, when I'm working with an EDM track, the first thing I always look at is the kick and the sub. Not necessarily the bass line particular, but whichever element's carrying the most amount of sub energy, which is typically the bass. Sometimes it's a particular sub line, and then there's other elements the bass is playing a bit more harmonically. But for this case, I've got one sub layer here, and the client wanted it punchy. They referenced Rumble by Skrillex, where it's heavy in the subs, but the kick, the rhythm, you feel it. It has to hit. So I was more concerned about having the kick fundamental slightly louder than the sub, so it was very clear and definitive. Take a look at this spectrogram and you can see the kick fundamental is definitely a few decibels louder than where the sub fundamental is, but the harmonics of the sub still match with the kick nicely. Now, the next thing is the vocals. And what I want to do is I want to dial my volume down, okay? Listen to how far the vocals are poking out compared to the kick and sub. Now, I know we're sort of getting into mixing territory, but this is just, for me, QC. All I'm doing is saying, is this within the range of acceptable or can it do with a little tweak? We'll have a listen to this and I'll bring the volume down of the kick, sub, and vocals playing together. So we just have to hear, are the vocals balanced nicely against the low end energy. Perfect, because what we're hearing is the kick pretty pronounced, the vocals pretty pronounced, and the sub just supporting underneath it at a very low volume. And when you crank that, that bass is going to become nice and thick. The vocals will continue to stay nice and clear too. Now, everything else in the mix sat beautifully. Now, the kick drum was okay, but I have knock and the clipper. I didn't want the transient of the kick poking through the mix because I had to make this quite loud. So both using the transient shaper in knock and the clipper at the end, I was able to get this really loud, fat, and flat because we had to drive levels on this master. And same sort of deal, I did the same on the low perk, so none of those snares cut too high and it just clips a little bit into this knock plug-in here, which I use the same setting as the kick drum. And then finally, for that sort of like percussive, low-end sort of aspect between the kick, the percussion, the bass, on the bass, I use Basslane Pro to add just a little bit of stereo information to the side signal because this has to be big, loud, in your face. Then finally, I'll be honest, I didn't know what to do with the vocal. The vocal was a very peculiar one because there's a lot of heavy processing on this vocal bus stem. And there are a lot of parts, and a lot of these parts were sort of moving in and out of focus on the master. And that's not something you want. You especially on a song like this, it's a remix, so the main hook and the vocals are the center point, and then the style has to fit around that. The vocal couldn't come in and out. This is where I say, did I cheat? I used Neutron on this because I was a little bit stuck because how saturated the vocals were already, and I was sort of, I needed assistance because it's not bad to say you need help or you need to try something new or something different to shake it up, because I was struggling to just get an EQ in there, and every time I made a change, I felt like I lost something. So I used Neutron, and Neutron spat this out. I didn't like the sculptor at all, but the equalizer made a relatively okay decision. Same with the compressors. The exciter is always a little bit too harsh. I had to tone it back a little bit on the mix knob there. So take a listen to this before and after with the Neutron. It's still pretty close to the original, but it just helped even it out a whole bunch, especially in context with all the stems, which we'll listen to now as we go through the whole master chain. Again, another clipper going into the chain because I really want to make sure none of those peaks are ducking any of my dynamic processes. Again, this is exceptionally aggressive processing for a very specific result. This isn't something you do on every single master, slam every little bit of stem and whatnot, but you know, when you're aiming for 3.5, 4 lufts, and that's part of the style that's expected in the type of music it is, you just do it. And these are techniques to make that happen. So take a listen to this here. All those rogue transients, that's what the clip is dealing on the way in. Then I've got Dyne 1, which is doing some upward compression. It's more focusing on those upper mids, getting clarity to those upper mids, because the low end kick with knock and the subs are a little bit louder. I didn't want it to feel all dark and mushy, so I put Dyne 1 on it just to help some of that low level detail in the upper mids come through. And it's nice, it just opens up that upper mid-range in a very subtle but kind way. Then I've got things like Diamond Saturator, which is giving a bit of aggression to some of that rhythm in the track. So whenever those transients come in, it gets a little bit of saturation, which is nice. Meta plugging, adding a bit of parallel to the stereo widener, 432, the Sontec, and then the Ozone 11. And again, I reiterate this, using the vintage limiter paired with maximizer. Okay, vintage limiter first, into maximizer, you get exceptionally loud results. And then you can have a master, which is stupid loud, up in 4.3 dB. And when it's level matched to the original pre-master, it sounds exceptional. Exceptional. I absolutely love this. So, I want to know, what do you think? Do you think this was cheating? Okay, the before and after is fucking wild, and I did very subtle changes to the stems and then just did a normal stereo master. Very subtle changes, I think, at least. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section below. Would you consider this mastering or mixing? And until next time, take care.